but I'm really pleased to be here. Just in case that doesn't come across, I'm really happy that Figshare has got some time to speak about who we are, what we are. And I'm not going to sell anything about Figshare today. We're just going to talk about the open data and the state of open data at Figshare. Just as a quick summary to see who has heard of Figshare in this room. Can you please raise your hands? Well, at least there's some. That's good, really good. For those who don't know us, Figshare is aimed to be a one repository system where you can store and share your files, research output, which goes from papers, PDFs, videos, you name it. It becomes openly available. We are a strong believer that all research output should be made openly available so that the rest of the research community can benefit from it and build upon it. If our goal is to have all research output openly available and well described so that the future researchers can understand and combine and build upon the data sets to make new discoveries, at this moment we see that we are still at the very beginning, stage one, getting files on the internet. So this is what we do at Figshare. We started off in 2011. Mark Hennell, our CEO and founder of the company, as a stem cell biologist. He wanted to step out from his counter PhD students all looking for a job and to become a scientist and finding a good position somewhere. He said, I've got a lot of data sets which are not linked to my articles. How can I make myself more known and more visible and stand out of the crowd? So he said, I'm going to look for a place where I can do this. There was nothing available, and so he created the platform on which he started to uploading his research output. Simple data sets, purely in the beginning, in his own benefit, which sounds a bit negative, but at that moment that was what he wanted to do. He wanted to stand out of the crowd. But he also wanted to make it simple. When he saw that it had a positive effect, we started to work on Figshare further. And we wanted it to become, for the researchers, for the scientists, something very simple and very easy to upload data sets. Drag and drop files, similar like YouTube, just drag and drop your files, add some metadata to it, and start sharing. Make it as simple as possible. Another thing which is really important for Figshare is that, and this is a PDF so I can't really show you, but that all the file types on the platform are directly viewable. You don't have to download any software or piece of software. You don't need to download the specific data set itself as well in order to see it. So you just have, within the browser, you can use and view the data set which has been made available. So we started working for researchers, but then we very quickly also moved for services for publishers, funders, institutions and governments, and we are represented all over the world. So the red dots you can see here, these are institutions, blue are funders, and there's some governments hidden in there as well. Actually we started off, which is maybe a bit awkward, but all the way down there in Australia. That was the first institutional customer to sign up with Figshare for institutions. These are some of our team's beliefs that we strongly hold on to. Academic research output should be as open as possible and as closed as necessary. This sometimes is a challenge, but we truly believe that it should be open as much as possible. Academic research should never be behind a paywall, which for me is funny because I worked for scientific publishers for almost 8 years, and I used to sell their content, whether that was through APCs or licenses. It never really struck me how important it is that data now should be available to everyone. So I'm a firm believer myself in this. Academic research output should be human and machine readable and queryable. Academic infrastructure should be interchangeable, meaning You should not be tied into a system from provider ABC. You should be able to move from one place to another. If you one day you work with Figshare and you want to move to another platform, we'll help you to move there. So research should not be tied into this. Academic researchers should never have to put the same information into multiple systems at the same institution. If you have a CRIS system within the university that you work, and you add all the relevant information about your research and you add the data, you should not have to do this twice. Therefore, we have open APIs that speak with the most of the CRIS systems, most systems out there. Not all, but we're doing our best. But we really firm believe of only having to put information in a system one time, and identifiers for everything. When in the first slide I said, I'm going to change this, that getting files on the internet is where we are currently. Obviously they need to be made available fair. Fair standing for findable, accessible, interoperable and reusable for both humans and machines. Just having files on the internet is great, but if you can't find them, if you can't use them, and no one understands the data, it doesn't really help. So the FAIR are guiding principles that aim to ensure data that are made available now and are going to be of use to future researchers as well. There's been some independent studies, both examples here from the Netherlands, where Figshare turned out to be coming on top with regards to the FAIR principles. This is where we are today. FAIR, findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable for humans and machines. However, we consider we are still FA when it comes for machines. The requirements for interoperable and reusable are somehow ambiguous and hard to measure programmatically. So we think this still requires some human interventions. But with some tweaking in the future, hopefully it will be fair also for machines. Being a technology company, we do believe in doing some research ourselves. So the talk of today, the state of open data. We have done, we started in 2016 asking researchers all over the world for their opinion and their feedback on open data and the state of open data. So we created, together with Springer Nature, we conducted a survey where we reached out to over 2,000 scientists all over the world to get feedback from them, and which we published and shared in our first report, which was done last year. I should have had a copy with me, and unfortunately it laid on my desk when I left yesterday my home. So this is the moment where I should wave with the copy, but it is downloadable on Figshare, of course. And if really you would like to have a print copy, by all means, just ask me and we'll get one to you. One of the biggest takeaways from 2016, which for us was really an eye-opener, is that 78%, and I'm counting the 68 in the red bubble and 10% in the blue one, is that scientists actually value a citation, value a data citation as much, if not more, than an article citation, which for us was completely new, because we always thought that article citations were the key to success and were the currency being used in academia, whereas now apparently a data citation or a citation is a citation in the eyes of researchers. We asked the same question in 2017, and guess what? 77% of people said the same: citations are absolutely relevant also for data sets. If somehow you think that we only ask our questions to our followers, that is not true. We helped, with the help of Springer Nature and their author database, we reach out to 2,300, I think, people all over the world from any institutions, different layers in the institutions as well, to get their information. So it's, we can't say it's more or less confirmed. Citation is a citation. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. Because it was so important, we decided to add the citations to our platform. In the beginning, we only had, that's the point there, views, downloads, and the altmetric button. And then later on last year, we added the citation counts there as well. So at any given moment in time, you can see the citations to your specific article that has been uploaded onto Figshare. In 2017, we reached out to an even broader public, so to speak, and asked their feedback, different stakeholders, and asked their feedback on open data. So as you can see, we reached out to public funder Jean-Claude Burgerman from the European Commission, private funder Wellcome Trust. They have all participated and wrote a small article in the State of Open Data 2017. It's truly interesting to read, so by all means go to the web and find it, or ask me to get that copy for you. So you can see we have had over 2,359 responses all over the world. This is a very nice data visualization that has been made through the help of the eResearch Center at the Oxford University. Today I'm not going through all the questions from the survey. One, because I don't have the time, and two, there's other people that might be interested in something else. But if you do follow the tiny URL, which is shown there, it's a very nice interactive map, so you can play with the data yourself. You can download the full data set and work on it if you wish. You can create your own data sets. This morning I just wanted to see under the survey demographics how much, there it is, how much respondees we got from Belgium, and there were 13. So out of 2,300, there were 13 people from Belgium having responded. I did not take the time to discover who that was, but just for your information. There are some trends, and this is hopefully a positive one. Although I have to be honest, the awareness of open data and having to share your data is becoming bigger and bigger. So since 2016, there's increased. I've got 10 more minutes. That's great. It increased in Africa slightly. In Asia, it had a serious increase. Sadly, Australia had a little drop. We don't really know what it is, but the rest throughout Europe and Latin America and US, there was an increase of awareness of sharing data within the community, which is really good. So when we asked the researchers what actually motivated them to share research, we had another surprise. We thought that the reason the researchers shared the data is mainly because their institutions or publishers or funders tell them they have to do so. But when looking at the slides here, you can see that it's the increased impact and visibility of my research and the public benefit and the transparency and reuse that were identified as main drivers to start sharing data. Whereas funder requirement was very low received, so which is really positive. The attitude that researchers don't want to share is potentially then also a myth, I'd like to claim. Some other takeaways, I would only like to stress one here. It's that the majority, 90% of the researchers do support a national open data mandate. Bless you. But it's not all good and positive. Like if it sounds negative, we do want to state that unfortunately there's also some knowledge gap for researchers around open data. We organized Figshare, we organize Figshare events all over the world, and every time there's a session where we ask the public, who do you think owns data, your research data? Is it you? Is it the institution? Is it the funders? Is it the publishers? It's very interesting. We think that the data is owned by the institution, or at least the ones who paid for the research, unless it's stated differently in the contract that you have, but we think it's from the institution, or at least a combined ownership, institution and scientist. The majority of researchers don't understand the Creative Commons licenses, which is a big problem. If you want to control ownership and copyrights of your data, you have to be aware of the Creative Commons licenses. So every data set you upload onto Figshare, you can choose what common licenses you would like to make the data available. And if you do not understand these and you choose the wrong ones, obviously then the whole debate on who owns your data becomes quite challenging. Only 25%, and that's quite staggering low, 25% of the researchers go look for the library for advice on data sharing. In other words, 75% thinks they know exactly what to do and starts uploading files on the internet and make it publicly available, where maybe it should not. Maybe there's too much information, private information. So we think it's very important that the message comes across how. So I'll go to my next slide later on, what to do there. The majority of researchers still use physical media to store and archive their data, and 83% sadly reported that there has been data loss simply because they lost USB files or hard disks being corrupted. That happens, it happens sadly, and 83% of the people reported that it happened to them as well. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Mark's new buzz sentence this year, Mark, our founder and CEO. When will open research education make it through those generating the research? The mandates are clear. These are good. The incentives are understood and clear. But it's the education where it is lacking at this moment. We just need to educate the researchers better on how to make the data fair, taking into account also the Creative Commons licenses. So if step 1 was getting files on the internet, we believe step 2 is the institutional as an education role. They have to take the role in teaching and lead the researchers how to share their data. Bless you also. Last slide of this presentation. We believe in helping our customers, whether that's publishers or institutions. So we have an engagement team who work very closely with institutional accounts, where we sit down and have live examples of how to best help you as an institution to roll out Figshare, how end users can upload their data. You can imagine that for a historian, the needs of sharing data, but also some of the metadata that they use, versus a mathematician, I should have chosen a different word, are not the same. They have different needs, and one might be much more advanced than the other. But we clearly help and reach out to the community to help you. So our engagement team is there to help. And all of the case studies are to be found in the tiny URL, which is on the bottom there. This is the end. I don't know if we have 5 more minutes or 3, but maybe there's some room for questions still.
Yes, we have time for one question.
That's a lot. Yes.
I was wondering if you, in the survey, if there was any question about what researchers understand by open data, because there's, of course, there's sharing data and open data, and there's a difference. Was there any question about this?
Yeah, I knew there would be questions about these specific questions. I'm more than happy to, and quote, I'm more than happy to find it out for you. We can have a look at it. All the questions are openly available, so you can search for these. To be honest, sorry, can't give you the answer. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for one more question.
That was a quick one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Elwin.
Okay, thank you.